When we stopped at the light, I see some chicks on the curb. Me yelling out the window, yo, mom, what's up? Yo, it's good. And before you know it, a car just rolled up, start popping in the car. Didn't say nothing, didn't yell nothing. Just pop, 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 pop.
I wanted to make sure like that this dream meant something at the end of the day, because this young man, lost his life throughout this journey.
Now, it's a new beginning, what I'm saying? It's the life after the death,
The hip-hop world has seen its fair share of heartbreak, and one of the saddest chapters in its history is the early passing of Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls. On that fateful night of March 9, 1997, Biggie's life was tragically cut short in a drive-by shooting in La, leaving a massive gap in the rap gang and in the hearts of his devoted fans that can never truly be filled. Lil Cease, a close buddy and fellow rapper, not only saw this terrible event happen, but also played a big role in shedding light on what went down leading to Biggie's death. So who was Lil Cease, and how did he make it out? Born in 1977 is James Lloyd. Lil Cease grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, while Biggie was born in the neighboring Clinton Hill in 1972. They both came of age during the turbulent 1980s crack epidemic, a time when their neighborhoods were rife with danger and temptation. But despite their age difference and different backgrounds, CE and Big quickly formed a deep bond. Actually, their friendship went beyond the usual definition of companionship. It was more like a brotherhood. They not only shared their dreams of making it big in the rap game, but also their struggles, joys, and fears. They found comfort in each other's company and in the shared hope of escaping the tough realities of their Brooklyn neighborhoods. Their relationship was built on trust and mutual respect. Biggie's talent as a lyricist and storyteller was evident from a young age, and CE recognized his friend potential even before the rest of the world did. This unwavering belief in Biggie's talent played a crucial role in both their journeys. When Biggie started gaining recognition in the rap scene, he didn't leave his friend CE behind. In fact, he brought CE along for the ride, and together they formed Junior Mafia, which stood for Masters at Finding Intelligent Attitudes. It was a hip-hop collective that would become synonymous with the mid-1990s East Coast rap resurgence. The crew was made up of close pals, L's and associates, but LCE had a unique spot as Biggie's right-hand man. Junior Mafia's first album, Conspiracy, dropped in 1995 and featured contributions from both Biggie and Lil Cease, and Biggie M's friendship blossomed. The rap world was deep in a fierce and heartbreaking rivalry between the East Coast and West Coast hip-hop scenes. The East Coast, led by artists like Biggie and Jay-Z, was in a showdown with the West Coast represented by Tupac Shakur and Dr. Dre. This feud turned nasty, leading on to violence and tragedy. CE and Biggie found themselves caught in the middle of this feud. Tupac, who used to be friends with Biggie, accused Biggie of setting up a 1994 shooting in which Tupac got wounded. The tension just kept on growing, and Tupac's untimely death in 1996 added more fuel to the rivalry. Tragically, Biggie also lost his life in La just a few months later. Now, the roots of this East Coast-West Coast feud can be traced back to the early 1990s, a time when hip-hop was going through some major changes. Back then, the hip-hop scene was mostly centered in New York City, but a new wave of West Coast hip-hop was on the rise. The West Coast's ascent to fame brought up different kind of sound and perspective to hip-hop. Artists from this region embraced a laid-back, funk-infused style, often explored themes of street life and gang culture. As the West Coast gained more and more attraction, tension started simmering between artists from the two coasts. Some East Coast rappers felt like their dominance in the genre was being challenged, and territorialism began to take hold. This rivalry wasn't just about music either. It extended to battles over radio airplay, record sales, and even clothing styles associated with each coast. Now, one of the most infamous incidents that added fuel to this rivalry happened at the 1995 Source Awards, an annual hip-hop award show held in New York City. Right from the get-go of the ceremony, tensions were running high, and the divide between the two coasts was glass. Ringly obvious things took a heated turn when Suge Knight, the CEO of Death Row Records, took the stage to accept an award. His words were seen as a direct challenge to the East Coast artists and their label, suggesting that the West Coast was the true home of creative freedom. This incident had a significant impact and cannot be overstated. It pushed the tensions between these two coasts to new levels, reinforcing the belief that a real feud was brewing in the hip-hop industry. At the core of this East Coast-West Coast feud were two of the genre's most legendary figures, Tupac and Big.
And it's a funny thing, I kind of realized how powerful Tupac and I was. We two individual people, we waged a coastal beef. You know what I'm saying? One man against one man made a whole West Coast hate a whole East Coast and vice versa.
Their rivalry took center stage in the conflict, and their personal animosities only made the tensions within the hip-hop community worse. Tupac, a West Coast native, had a rocky relationship with Biggie, and it could be traced all the way back to a series of misunderstandings and conflicts. Past belief that Biggie and Diddy had prior knowledge of the 1994 shooting, in which Tupac was wounded, even though Biggie vehemently denied any involvement. Tupac's anger and paranoia grew, fueling his belief that here was a conspiracy going on against him. His imprisonment in 1995 on assault charges only made his suspicions grow stronger and intensified his feud with Biggie during his time behind bars. Pac signed with Death Row Records, aligning himself even more with the West Coast and adding to the tension between the two rival coasts. Hit Him Up versus Who Shot You, Biggie versus Pac. Everything was on the line. The feud between these two came to a heartbreaking conclusion with the deaths of both artists in drive-by shooting incidents that remain unsolved to this day. Tupac was the first to become a victim of the violence. On the night of September 7, 1996, he was shot multiple times in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas. Tupac sadly lost his life 6 days later on September 13. Then, just 6 months after Tupac's death, Biggie met a similar tragic fate. On March 9, 1997, he was gunned down in Los Angeles, a case that remains one of the most high-profile unsolved mysteries in the history of hip-hop.
And I say, yo, Puff, I got some intel, brother. He ain't never heard me ever tell him not to go nowhere. And I didn't tell him not to go nowhere that night. I said, Puff, I got some intel. The guys are coming to kill us tonight. He said, Gene, I don't want to hear that shit.
When Lil Cease shared what went down on that unforgettable night, he revealed that Diddy's car leading the way in front of theirs, Biggie. And he actually went through the red lights, but for some reason Biggie's driver was told to stop. It's that reckless decision that gave the hitman the chance to take a shot at Biggie. Cease is the only one telling this story about what happened on that fateful night. Now, Diddy's former bodyguard also brought some new perspectives to Biggie's death. Sean Deal, who was paid of Puffy's security detail in the 9S, spilled the beans about the night that Biggie was killed in an interview. And he's frustrated with how the events leading up to his death are portrayed in movies and documentaries in contrast to popular belief. Deal insists that Brooklyn rapper Untimely demise technically wasn't due to a drive-by, and he's convinced that the shooter, who still remains unidentified by the police to this day, was lurking and waiting before pulling the trigger. And this was not the first time that Gene told this story either, and he's pretty much always telling the same thing. This is why people believe him in general. One person said his story never changes. I feel like he's telling the truth. Another comment was right there with him. Gene told the same story hundreds of times. He's definitely consistent. Gene had information that the killers would come to get them, yet Diddy thought this piece of information wouldn't result in anything. Sadly for the hip-hop community and all those close to Big Diddy was wrong. Gandhi also remembered rushing to help Biggie after his GMC Suburban got sprayed with bullets by the driver of a black Chevy Impala. This all went down at a red light near the Peterson Automotive Museum in Law, where Biggie had just attended a Soul Trade Awards after party. One theory that just won't quit is the idea that Diddy might have had something to do with Biggie's troubles. Some say it's because Biggie started writing songs for other artists to secure some publishing rights, because Diddy actually owned the rights to all the Biggie's albums, so the fact that Biggie was writing for others was Biggie's way around that mess. Diddy was also on the hunt for talent to put on the Big Beat record label instead of his Bad Boy label. Instead of pushing Biggie, that might BY Jr. Mafia decided to sign with Big B and not Bad Boy. Biggie was working on a joint venture with Lance Rivera, trying to run his own record label. He was planning on leaving Bad Boy as soon as he met his contract obligations. The real deal was that Puff and Big weren't best buds. It was never a partnership, it was more like a boss versus employee thing. With Puff in charge, Biggie got treated just like everyone else under Bad Boy, except he got set up on his way out. Perhaps Diddy sensed that Biggie was becoming the top dog from the crew, and he anticipated competition that was perhaps out of his reach. Was that the reason why Diddy didn't listen when Gene Deal, the same person who cared the most about not only his, but the safety of his whole clique, told him to be wary of the situation? Is it possible that Diddy orchestrated this whole damn thing? Whatever the case may be, Diddy is under a lot of scrutiny for everything that he's done in the music industry from the very moment that he emerged as a mogul. What's done in the dark always comes to light sooner or later. Diddy will reap what he SWS. What y'all think about Cease and Gene's story? Do you believe that Biggie's death could have even been avoided if the after-party never took place? Let us know what you think down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click like and subscribe to the channel for more fresh hip-hop news straight to your feed. And as always, you got to keep it rhythm.